Welcome back to a brand new season of TVGP's Critical Misses, show where we're catching up on all the media hits we missed. I'm your host, Boston John,
Uh-huh.
as always, is Moonpier.
Howdy.
This season we're going to do a quick 1-2 remakeables season. We're going to be covering the two Dredd films, starting here with
Yup.
1995's Judge Dredd, which is... Uh, if you haven't listened to the circuitous route we took to get to this season, if you're a $5 or higher patron over at patreon.com/E1M1,
The ones and numbers.
go listen to that because we had probably about 3 or 4 seasons planned before we went, ooh, the
Uh-huh.
Dredd movies.
We went through a whole bunch of different options.
Yeah, so you can go listen to that production meeting over there. I have seen neither of these movies, and I believe you have seen both of them, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It's going to be a couple of seasons of, well, spoiler alert, a couple of seasons of me having done everything and you not having done anything,
Mm-hmm.
which is, let's face it, it's like 80-20 that scale anyway at this
Oh,
point.
for sure. That's like the genesis of this show. So we might as well stick to it.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Um,
What, you haven't seen that film, mate? What are you talking about? Like,
that's
come on.
right. Yeah. Um. Okay. So Judge Dredd. Let's
Okay,
see. Let's
actually,
see what I
let's
know.
let yeah, let's start with the character, not the movies, but the character. Do you know
Okay.
of Judge Dredd?
No, I am. I want to say that he's a comic book character originally.
He is.
Okay. Uh, I don't. I want to say that it's not like a Marvel DC Image, like one of the big studios.
You are correct.
Okay. Um, other than that, I don't think I know anything about the character.
Okay, so let's start with the comic side.
Okay.
So he originally appeared in a British published comic book series,
Okay.
um, way back in 1977, my man.
So if he's in 77, let me guess that he's this like hyper American, super violent, keeping the streets clean at all odds sort of character.
100%.
Okay, because if it's
So
coming out from Britain in the 70s, you could probably guess who it's aimed at.
a little bit, yes.
Yeah.
So he first appeared in the second ever issue of 2000 AD, which was the British
Okay.
weekly comic book. So
Sure.
most of the time when people say 2000 AD, the first thing that people will come to mind is Judge Dredd
Okay.
because he's their longest running character. He's what? So we're gonna lean into the Starship Troopers movie specifically side of things here,
Oh, okay.
which is and RoboCop to the same extent. Judge Dredd is widely regarded as a satire of British and American culture,
Okay.
but not in the haha funny joke kind of satire kind of way, more like dystopian nightmare hellscape future satire kind of way.
So on We Rogue Like It, we played a game called Going Under, which was very much a satire of startup culture and like engineering
Exactly.
development culture, where it's like, haha, oh, that's too close to home. Oh gosh, okay, that
Uh-huh.
sort of
And
thing.
very much, yeah, and similar to the. I hate the fact that I have to ask this. Have you seen RoboCop?
I have seen most of the first RoboCop.
Okay, so that's very much a satire on commercialism and all that kind of
Right, the
corporate
capitalism nightmare.
capitalism as a
Yeah,
whole kind of thing.
right.
Yes, and Starship Troopers is the same for the crap I forgot the for lack of a better way to phrase this, the right wing led world, we'll say.
And like
Um,
colonialism and imperialism and a lot
exactly.
of isms.
So Judge Dredd is that, except
Gotcha.
it covers authoritarianism, police state, the rule of law versus
Mm-hmm.
mankind's right to choose, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, The comics specifically have always been one of the most violent things you will ever read in your life. Like,
Okay.
they are 18, like, some of them I think were even rated above 18. Like, they are so
Hmm.
violent and aggressive. The
It it
general theme.
it sounds
Mhm.
kind of like here in the States would be heavy metal, that kind of like 70s,
Yes,
80s,
it's
where
that.
heavy metal was more about like,
Wasn't that a French comic as well, by the way, that was translated?
oh, was it? I don't,
I
oh, I
believe
don't
Heavy
know,
Metal
maybe.
was a French comic,
Okay.
dude.
And I felt heavy metal was always less the violence and more like the sex and drugs and like making something that's kind of surreal and weird rather than something that's kind of out and out violent.
Correct. So yeah,
Yeah.
Heavy Metal, sorry, it is an American one, but you are
Okay.
correct. That is super erotica, super
Right.
drugs, that kind of stuff. Whereas Judge Dredd is just plain violent.
Okay.
Now, the movie we're gonna watch, minus spoilers, um, which don't really matter because you don't have a history with the character. The biggest mistake they made in this movie,
Hmm.
they took his helmet off.
So in the comics, he always has it on. It's just like the mouth.
You In the comics, you have never seen his face. Never.
Okay. You got a real Master Chief sitch going on.
Pretty much, yes.
Right.
So I'm curious to see how this movie, because I've seen this movie a while ago. I think it's bad in a good way.
Okay. So like kind of weird and bad in a way that's fun.
Yes, this is a 1995 cheesy action movie based on a licensed product kind of thing.
Sure. This is the movie that
Um,
Last Action Hero was making fun of.
yes,
Gotcha.
probably. Yes, yeah, I would. Yeah, yeah, I would go there. But with that, we can transition over to the movie. What do you know about the movie?
I know it is a Sylvester Stallone movie.
Uh-huh.
Um, in in our production meeting, as a little teaser here for non-patrons, we did talk about a potential season in those episodes. Just to give you a little bit of flavor here, we talk about a lot of potential seasons. These aren't things that are going to come to light. Um,
Uh-huh.
but we talked about a potential season of one famous quote. Like this movie has one famous quote, and I think Judge Dredd is the "I am the law" movie.
Yes,
Okay,
that is the I Am the Law movie, and
so that's
that
the
is
quote.
straight. Yes, that's straight from the comic book. That is 100% Judge Dredd. Like,
Hmm.
that should give you an idea of the setting we're going to deal with here.
Right, right. Um, I feel like Rob Schneider is in this movie, which
Ding,
is
ding,
like,
ding,
oh
ding, ding,
man,
ding,
okay.
my man.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's 95, so like it could be either. Um, gosh, what else do I know about? I feel like this is gonna be maybe kind of the 90s version of my experience with the Alien franchise. We're sort of like, I'm gonna be watching this, and there's be like 15 things. I'm like, oh, that's where, oh, that's the line, oh, that's the shot that I've seen. It's the Akira bike skidding shot. You know, it's, I've seen that in 50 other things now. Oh, okay, cool. All right, I got you.
It's the it's the Leo pointing at the screen gif. It's like,
Yes.
oh, there we go.
Yep, that's just me over and over. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know if I know anything else from this one, but I am excited to watch this just to see if there are any of those kind of alien moments where it's like, oh, that's all right, okay, yeah, that's where it was.
Uh-huh. So, so this is 1995.
Right.
This is Sylvester Stallone as the
Hmm.
lead character in a movie at arguably Sylvester Stallone's peak, one might say.
I was just trying to think as you were warming up that sentence. I'm like, man, Sylvester Stallone, did he kind of peak in the late 80s, or was he still doing pretty solid by this point? I feel like this was an era where it's like, yeah, Stallone was still he was still doing numbers, like he was still selling tickets.
Well, Rocky Five was 1990.
Okay.
Cliffhanger was 93. Demolition
Oh,
Man was 93. The
wow.
Specialist was 94.
Okay.
And one could argue that this is his start into the downswing of his career.
Mm-hmm.
But also, one could argue that maybe he was too big for his britches and took control of the movie, one might say.
Okay. So I feel like there's I
Apparently,
good.
I haven't read it. This movie is vastly different from the script, if that gives you an idea.
Interesting. Okay. I wonder if this is one of those like, all right, you guys wrote a script. That's real nice. I brought in my people to write a shooting script for us, so you guys can. Thanks for your help.
There are some quotes that I have read about the interaction between the director and Sylvester Stallone in this, and
Okay.
it's like, okay, so this was probably a nightmare to shoot, film, and everything else.
Yeah, I wonder if this was maybe the kind of the breaking point for a bunch of people in Hollywood, where it's like, I'm done with this dude. Whatever. He just keeps
Yeah,
screwing all this stuff up.
possibly. I will save you the hassle, by the way. The director of this is Danny Cannon, who has mostly done TV shows and things like that.
Okay.
Like, it's worse because I believe this was his first huge budget movie where he gets to put some money behind stuff. And let's just get out of the way. This movie has a budget. Like,
Mm,
like costuming alone is one of my favorite things about this movie. There's a lot I don't like, but
sure.
costuming is really good.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else here for this one. I feel like this movie is more infamous than it is famous. Um,
Uh-huh.
so I feel like that's an easy thing to know going into this. Um, but I'm not sure if I can think of anything else specifically coming out of this.
So we know the
Right,
quote.
right.
What do you think about the general setting of the movie? What do you think we're going to go with?
Gosh. I feel like it's 95, so it's probably like a dystopian kind of like the cyberpunk
It's
is good.
it's 95 based on a 97 or a 77 comic book.
Right. So I feel like 95 wasn't really a big like we hadn't really gotten the swing of like cyberpunk in movies yet. I feel like in the
Sure.
90s it kind of took a break. You saw some of that stuff in like the 70s and the 80s and certainly more
And then it
recently.
hit hard in the noughties as well. Like the
Yeah,
noughties was very
exactly.
much a cyberpunk like decade.
Right. So I feel like this might be, in movies of like the late 80s and the 90s, I feel like you often see like, here's LA, and you see like there's factories everywhere and there's just flames belching out of the top of buildings everywhere. Like that
Uh-huh.
variety of post apocalyptic kind of rundown thing.
Okay, okay. I will
Yeah.
say there is some branding on this thing that I adore, not on the movie itself, but in the theme of the comics.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm just going to introduce you to two big things straight
Okay.
off the bat, which it is literally mentioned in the first 2 seconds of the movie, so it's no big spoilers.
Right.
Number one, it's called the Cursed Earth,
Oh man, that's real good. Okay. I like that.
and number two, the city in question where this whole thing takes place is called Mega City One.
Mega City 1 is a really good name. Oh man.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'm already vibing with both of those things. I like it.
Yep.
It's
It's
it's real good.
it's mm-hmm. And yeah, that should give you an idea. Like this is just, I love the Judge Dredd universe. I do.
Mhm.
Because hey, guess what? They predicted so much stuff in those
Mhm.
comic books. Like
Right.
the Judge Dredd comic books from like the 77 and onwards is essentially the Mission Impossible movies,
Okay.
where they just predict the future with glaring accuracy.
Hold on,
Um,
can we take a side note here? We just finished the Mission Impossible series, and at the end of it, we were sort of maybe giving a eulogy for the Mission Impossible series overall, because the next two movies are going to be the final ones. Um, and we thought, like, boy, what is gonna usher in like this Nostradamus prediction sort of thing? And I saw the best news story that came out this week here in late July 2022. Um, about a SATA cable attack on servers called Satan, because it's just SATA with the N at the end of it, where you can steal data by essentially clamping something onto a SATA cable inside of a server. And I'm like, if we
it's
only
Mission
had
Impossible.
more Mission Impossible movies, that would be one of them. Ah, man.
Mhm. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Goodness.
Oh, but yeah, like so the Dredd comic books, like I'm talking about, I'm a fan of the lore of the Dredd comic books. I've never sat down and read like 70 issues back to back. I caught
Oh,
bits and
sure.
pieces here and there kind of thing. But it's got a very the art style is very Warhammer 40K, so just get that in your head straight away.
So kind of like
Um,
really big, bulky, kind of armor-laden, giant guns, like that sort of thing.
oh, I wish it was giant guns. It's actually small gun and
Oh, bummer.
singular, but I think you will love the gun in this so
Okay.
much.
I feel like if you're gonna give a big dude a small gun and he only has one of them, it's gonna be impactful.
Yeah, okay. I just double checking that I was gonna get the name of it right because I have to, because again, it's not really a spoiler. He uses a pistol. One
Okay.
pistol. That's
Okay.
it. That's all the judges tend to use. They do have shotguns and rifles and so on and so forth. But the pistol is called the Lawgiver.
All right. That's pretty good.
See what I mean when I talk
Yeah.
about the law being amazing?
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. I like it.
It's
You figured
so
it
good.
out, Brits in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really good.
Any parting thoughts here for Judge Dredd as we prepare to enter the theater?
I am excited about watching this one because I can remember a lot and it's going to be cheesy. Like, let's switch our brains off for this one.
Right.
Like, this is going to be cheesy 90s schlock, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super pumped about the next one.
Yeah, I think we're largely doing this one to say like, hey, y'all like Carl Urban? Let's watch one of them.
Exactly. Literally. So again, minor behind the scenes here. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna lie. I had Dredd on 3 different options for seasons.
Right. Right. Oh,
I
man.
had it on a Twin Mission, I had it on a Remakeables, and I had it on
Yo Carl
it
Urban
was
season, I think.
basically yes.
Yeah.
And there was
Oh,
also
man.
the option of putting it in there for the quote one as well that we discussed.
That's true.
So
That's true.
that's 4 different ways to watch Dredd. Literally, this is the
Right.
fastest route to get there, I
That's
think.
right. We're getting there. Oh man. All right. Well, on that note, let's go watch the film.
Yup.
Welcome back. We have returned from Mega City 1.
To judge you. Specifically to judge you.
That's right, to judge me specifically. All right, let's get... First off, just want to notice, after the last couple of series we've done, I like a 90-minute movie. You get in, you get out, you get a Cure song, you're done. I love it. 2 thumbs up.
Is that who did the end credit song?
Yeah, it's called Dredd Song. It's really good.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Great.
Yeah.
Like, like my first note of this, by the way, is crap. I forgot how much I love the music in this movie.
The soundtrack is very good.
Like, say what you want about the quality of the movie as a whole,
Oh,
but
I'm gonna
that
say a
intro
lot.
music is. Oh, me too. Trust me, me too.
It's really good. Also, as soon maybe like 3 words into the text scroll at the beginning, I'm like, that's James Earl Jones.
Uh-huh.
The
Me too.
cursed earth. And I was like, this is all so good. Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Also, don't get a lot of intro text crawls here nowadays, which is a real
No.
bummer. James Earl Jones being put out of work by not having any text crawls.
Oh, please. He's still Darth Vader to this day, I think.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, we get the kind of intro to the world here about the judges and the mega cities and the cursed
Which is
earth.
the entire Eastern Seaboard, by the way.
Yeah, it's really good. We kind of get dropped into it here at the beginning.
Yeah, it's the prison shuttle with what's his face on it.
Yeah, with Rob Schneider, whose character name is Fergie. And Rob Schneider is in this movie for way more than I thought. Which is fine. I'm not the world's biggest Rob Schneider fan, but he's pretty okay in this. He at the very least serves his purpose, which is pure comedic relief, and also hacks something at the end.
That is true. Also, this is the second of 2 Rob Schneider and Sylvester Stallone movies where he's the comedy sidekick.
What was the other one?
Demolition Man.
Oh, that's right.
Arguably a much better movie.
Yeah. I don't know. I got a lot of good things to say about Judge Dredd here as we
wow, that I wasn't expecting.
No,
okay.
Yeah. Well, let's start with good stuff. I think the 90s cyberpunk / goth mixture of the like matte backgrounds and light CG they're doing and the crowds that they have, I think it's all really good, and I think it's all really cohesive.
Yep, there's only a few scenes I think that stand out as like very clearly like, well, that was a CGI scene, or like that was clearly a matte background, but it's not that bad of a matte background.
No, and like all the backgrounds that they have, you know, especially in something like the very last shot of the movie, they're really good. Like if I was to leverage some positive criticism against Judge Dredd, the set design is incredibly solid, and all of it feels cohesive. Like, even you go into someone's apartment, it feels right. Like, you go into the Hall of Judges thing, and that feels right. Like, everything is really, really solid.
Yeah.
Also, really tickled me in the intro credits, where it's just like, costumes designed by Versace, and I was like, excuse me?
Of course.
I
didn't even know that, but of course.
It's like, all right, well, that explains a lot.
What was the other one? Was Fifth Element the other one with one of those famous people doing one of those costume things?
Funny, you should mention Fifth Element, as a matter of fact, Moon. Mentioning one of my favorite movies of all time that seems to share a lot of DNA with this movie in pretty interesting ways. It is. I watched most of this with my wife. She's also a very big fan of Fifth Element, and it's interesting, and you kind of see the dotted line between this movie and Fifth Element. It shares a lot of similarities. Yeah. But yeah, we get introduced to
the judges.
We get introduced to Fergie. We get the Coors sponsored recycled food robot, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah. Eat recycled food. It's good for the environment or something like that.
It's good for the environment. It's good for you. I kind of like how they introduce the street war that's going on, where they just dump Fergie into it, and it's like, yeah, man, bye. Good luck.
Come on. Correct terminology, please. Block war. Thank you very much. It's much more aggressive.
It's true. Yeah, it's one of many block wars. Yeah, we get introduced to Judge Hershey, which is Diane Lane, looking real good in this movie. And some dude who doesn't really make it. He doesn't really matter. Yep,
the rookie. He's literally a rookie.
The rookie, yeah. I was really not expecting Stallone's first line in this movie to be the line. Um,
Uh-huh.
he just drops "I am the law" immediately.
So I did not know it was that early. I forgot it was that early, I should say, and I
Yep.
hated it for it. It's like,
hmm
why? That's
Just
you build to that.
you can't open with a showstopper, man. Like, what are you doing
Mhm.
here? Um,
Also, I do like the fact that it appears he's wearing new rocks, continuing the 90s trend of people and
mhm.
actors wearing new rocks in movies. Here's looking at you, Alien Resurrection, just saying.
Well, it's
Um,
really interesting too, looking at his costuming because I feel like you look at a lot of stuff in 2022 and it has very elaborate costuming. And
mhm.
this movie is like
It's
you're
so
wearing
simple.
a leotard and like a belt and a codpiece and like pauldrons. That's really in the helmet, of course. But like
Yeah,
that's really it. Like on the chest and the legs, there's not really anything
they're not
going
a
on,
lot.
which I think is interesting.
I love the fact that it's like what, like either launch World of Warcraft or Warhammer 40k size pauldrons, though, where
Yes,
it's like
100%.
you could shade a two-person family underneath one of those things. Like
That's
it's
right.
ridiculous. And his introduction is really good though, where he comes off the bike and he's like, "Why are you hiding?
Right.
They're
Their
using
effective
this type of
range.
gun. The
Yeah.
lethal range is 100
Right.
meters out. You could still get hurt,
Yeah.
but it's
Well, what?
non-lethal from this distance."
Yeah. I they do a pretty good job, I think, early on, uh, introducing the gear. Like he has his motorcycle, the flying motorcycle thing. Um,
The Law
they,
Master, by the way, the Law Master. Yeah.
yeah, it's really good. Um, and they go not to great lengths to explain the gun, the but I like that they
Lawgiver, thank you.
yes the lawgiver too. They show enough of it to say like, all right, look, it can do a whole bunch of stuff. It's voice activated. It's just a real killing machine, and you can't. It's DNA coded to the judge itself, like some real
Mhm.
MGS4 business. Um,
Yeah, nano machines, son.
that's right. That's right. Um, and I like that they don't really deal with it. Where it's just like, yeah, Dredd comes in, he kills them all, and then he's like, all right,
With like 5 different weapon type, well, like ammo types, just
yeah,
for poops and giggles.
yeah, he's got to keep it fresh.
Uh
Um,
huh.
and then he just kind of leaves. He's just like, all right,
Uh
well,
huh.
my job's done. Bye. Oh wait, the food recycling robot seems to be a little bit weird. Oh well, Fergie's inside. I'm gonna arrest him too. Um,
Yep.
and man, I
Then
gotta.
we
Go
cut
ahead.
to the Judge HQ at this point, which is
I love this
the
building so much.
biggest eagle building on
I
the
just
planet.
I there's a moment later on in the movie where if you didn't realize this movie is half satire,
Hmm.
then there's a moment where it really like seals the deal. But for me, the intro is really very clearly like a satire, the police state, the looming police state, um,
Hmm.
and seeing that eagle building is just like, yeah, man, all right, you're
Uh-huh.
really hammering it home. But that building looks super cool.
It does. So you just mentioned it, so let's talk about this right off the bat.
Yeah.
So the director and the writers in the original script wanted it to be more serious, a
Mm,
very serious satire, very similar to RoboCop and Starship Troopers. Of
sure.
look down the path we're heading, just like the comic book is. Look down the path
Right.
we're heading. This is what we can look forward to. Whereas the studio and Sylvester Stallone were like, no, it's an action comedy movie, clearly, and
Right.
it's
Like
like,
those are the thing you want to do right now.
So that's why Schneider's in there. That's
Right.
why there's a way too many punny one-liners in this movie for my liking.
There's it feels
Some of them are
very
gold.
90s like that. Yeah, some of them are really good, but like it does feel very 90s like that where it's like, all right, you could probably pull back on some of these and you'd still be okay. Um
Yeah. But yeah, no, we get introduced to the Chief Justices.
yes.
Uh, Chief Judges in the comic books, by the way.
Right. Right. And their kind of council there. Um I really like seeing who's the Max von Sydow as the Chief Justice
Yes,
Fargo. He's real good in everything, and he's really putting in the work in this movie. Like I feel like he's probably taking it the most seriously out of anybody.
he is
Um,
acting. Everybody
him,
else is
yeah,
just.
him and Diane Lane, I feel like are the two that are like really keeping this movie together.
Oh, I
Ar-
don't know. I think Rico is acting as well, if I'm completely honest.
Armand Assante as Rico is like he's acting in the way that he does, which I think he's acting in a different movie, which I really like. Like he's
Uh-huh.
just like, I'm Rico and I'm crazy. It's like that's
Yep.
maybe a little bit more than this movie needs to be, but I appreciate it. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, we get introduced to, we get to see Joseph Dredd without his helmet, which is still, yeah, all right, yeah. Um,
It's Sly. He had to have his glory shot because he's got to have his face in it.
I
He's
mean,
got the worst thing is he's got the chin for Judge Dredd. Like he's
well,
got that big square chin,
and what's so
which comes
wild
in
is
later, which I love.
if you have that mask, if you have that helmet on Stallone, you still know that dude from the way his mouth moves. Like it's
Hmm.
still. I
And the
know
way
you
he
have to.
sounds, he's very
Right.
distinctive.
Especially when this movie came out, like everybody knew Stallone in '95. Like there was no, and I get the realities of the situation. Is like, yeah, you have the leading man. You pay for Stallone, he has his helmet off. Like I get it. I'm not really that upset about it. But it would have been kind of interesting to have him just
Really,
without
really,
it.
you think that's the case? We'll see how 2022 or whatever it is, 2012, 2015,
2012,
16.
2012.
We'll see how 2012 Hollywood makes that decision, shall we?
I'm excited. But we get introduced to like how Hershey and Dredd are kind of taking their teachings of the rookies a little bit differently. We get the beginning of the jokes about the hover bikes really never working, which is
Hmm.
is
Oh, we
actually
also
pretty
missed
good.
out the we missed out the I knew you'd say that running joke throughout the entire movie,
Yeah, that's pretty good.
which apparently, by the way, Judge Hershey's when she does it in the apartment in the block war,
Hmm.
and you see, uh,
Hmm.
she just ad libbed that, and they just kept it in because they all
Right,
cracked up.
that's really good. Um, we also get Rico escaping from his sort of
Aspen Prison. Aspen
yeah
Prison.
his like beta tested of the X-Men prison there with the blue wall. um I really like the makeshift gun that comes
Uh-huh.
in as the little present. I'm
Like the
always a
3D
sucker for
printed
that stuff.
transformer.
It's really good. I'm always a sucker for that stuff where it's like, oh, look at this, a little badge. It's also a gun. Yeah. Um it's a pretty good escape scene when Rico is escaping from there. It's not bad. Um Rico goes to get his uniform and his gun and finds a ABC Warrior combat robot, which I want to say
It's so dope.
I really love practical stuff, and you make a really big puppet that turns
Hmm.
out to be a growling robot, and I am 100% there with it, and that is
What is it? I think the purpose is my favorite line
mhm,
where the robot's like designation, objective, and then he says
mission.
purpose, and Rico responds with, "Well, yeah, that's it, mission."
Yeah.
And he's like, "War," and he goes, "War."
It's really, and he's like, my wife is like, why is he always growling when he doesn't even have lungs or anything? And I was like, I don't know, man, this robot cool.
It does not matter.
Yeah, it's
He's
cool.
a easy answer. He's a robot designed to war. It's intimidating. There we go. Problem
Yeah,
solved.
and I really like I really like how that robot looks. I really like how it moves. It's very clearly some sort of puppet. It's very clearly like a practical effect, and I think it works
Hmm.
100% of the time. It's really
Oh,
really
it
good.
does, and it's
Yeah,
terrifying as well. Like
it's
it's so
huge.
huge.
Yeah.
Like it's really well articulated, but not super like uncanny valley. Like it's very robotically articulated, which I do like about it.
Yep.
And it's also a look into the history because it's from I think it's from the Apocalypse Wars, is from when it was
Yeah,
from.
because all they said, "Oh, I can't believe they still let you have those after the war." And it's like, oh,
He's like, It's like, no, you can't have an active. There's nothing wrong with collecting it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
I liked that line a lot of like, sure. Yeah.
You're one of those people. I see how
Yeah.
it is.
We then move to Hammond, the reporter we've seen in kind of a couple of scenes in TV, gets murdered by Dredd, and yes, a quote, and Dredd gets brought before the Council of Judges.
No. We need to talk about Red Car Guy first.
Red Car Guy listening to White Zombie very loudly. I like that song a lot.
While literally bumping backwards and forwards in a hover car in a parallel parking space.
It's really good.
This again, it's a really good world building because Dredd shows up and he's like, well, you've had 2 DUIs. You're doing a public nuisance again. Right. So call in a towing vehicle, please. And he's like, no, you can't tow him. And he's like, don't worry, he's not going to tow you. He's just going to trash the car.
Mm-hmm. There's a really great shot of Dredd, his arm and his gun reaching across the frame, and the guy in the background just, no! Like, there's a really just flat. Like, that's... It's pretty good. Yeah, and then Dredd gets arrested himself.
I never broke the law. I am the law.
It's so good and bad every time it happens. It's great. We also forgot to talk about the
project. At this point.
Yes, the Jazz Project, which is the most on the nose name for this project.
Yeah, and you guys just cannot give us crap about the way we pronounce Janus. However, because there is 17 different people who say that in this, and not a single one of them pronounces it the same way. So,
and in GoldenEye, they pronounce it totally differently too. I always pronounce it. Yeah, I always pronounce it Janus, but whatever. It's just.
You were about to say we missed something, by the way.
Yes, we missed a really quick scene between Hershey and Dredd where Hershey was badgering him about he used to have a friend, and Dredd just I judged him. And then walks away.
The sad hero moment. We forgot about that.
That's right. So he gets brought in front of the Council of Judges, and they query the central computer to figure out some interesting new details about the Lawgiver 2.
But before that, they have a signed affidavit from a rookie.
It's a rookie, video and audio nerd. It's just the resolution is so low, and
it's inadmissible in court. Thank you very much.
Slam dunk. Let's go. All this. But we then find out that the Lawgiver is not only, we knew it was DNA coded to the individual judge. But we also
DNA codes the bullets is what we didn't know.
And then we find out Dredd's DNA is all over the bullets inside of the reporter. Cough, cough, wink, wink. And he is likely
he's basically about to get the death sentence.
Yeah, he's likely to be found guilty. The dude who is Judge Griffin has been, throughout the whole movie, has been trying to push for more laws, tighter
totalitarian
laws. He wants to push further into controlling the megacities. And Chief Justice
if you steal,
Fargo,
you die. If you speed, you die.
Yeah,
it's the Parks and Rec skit, except instead of go to jail, it's you die.
That's right. And Fargo has largely been saying hey man, I don't think we need to go that far. Things are bad, but come on. So Griffin finally gets his wish here, saying hey man, if you want to save your boy here, your numero uno, your favorite guy, might be a good idea for you to step down. And the council always has to grant the wishes, one final wish of a departing judge before the long walk.
I was gonna say right before they take the long walk, which is
really good.
I'm sorry. It's a great terminology and it's a cool idea for a tradition, but who would sign up for that? okay, so you become essentially a cop. You
Yep.
do what you think is right. You enforce the laws, and then when you retire, you don't get a pension. You don't get benefits. Good. Um,
You
Instead,
just get
you get
killed.
yeah, you get given a gun and a book of the law and sent outside the city
Yep.
to
To
the cursed earth.
go spread the law. Yeah, it's really, and I like that even Hershey in an earlier scene is just like, "Hey man, don't tell the rookies that. Like, what are you trying to do? Scare them out of this?" Like, I
Mhm.
mean, he's telling them the truth at least. So Fargo does step down, and it's interesting because his last request isn't to have Dredd go free. His last request is just be lenient,
Uh-huh.
and
Which
they
translates to
just send him off to Aspen. Bye. Um, and we do get the scene here with Fargo leaving, and if you didn't think that this movie was satire up until this point, this shot where he takes a shotgun and what is essentially a Bible to go
uh-huh.
out into the wilderness to go spread the good word, I mean the law, I
Uh-huh.
don't know what to tell you.
While having an a like
Like a 20 gun
the
salute.
yeah, essentially like
Yeah.
the salute with the guns over the
Hmm.
air. They don't actually fire. They
No,
just
that's true.
hold the guns in the air like a little tunnel for him to walk through, and it's
Yeah.
like, come on,
Yeah,
like
it's
really.
really it's like almost on the nose, but it's not really quite there. Um
Mhm.
and
Oh, yeah, so yeah, Dredd gets put on a prison transport, which just
yep.
so happens to sit him right next to Fergie, who identifies him when he wakes up from his nap. It looks like
Mhm.
he identifies him, but he's like, "Why do I know that face? Why do I know that face?" And then he holds up his hand and covers the top part of his face.
It's a
He's like,
really good shot. I
and then he
really like
calls him
it.
by name, and the guy behind him hears him say Dredd. And then if you look at while the conversation's unfolding, the guy behind him also does the hand thing
He
and just
does.
looks at the bottom of his face.
I love that everybody is like, "Oh, it's him. Oh no."
Hmm.
Yeah, a whole bunch of fighting happens there and we get introduced to the Angel Gang who is a
Uh-huh. I wrote Desert Hillbillies, by the way.
they really are. They really are. There's some stuff happening in this entire scene. The Angel Gang shoots down the transport. Also, got to give a lot of credit. The CG for the transport is actually pretty good. I feel like they worked to the
The
strengths and
strengths.
weaknesses of CG at the time, where it's like we're gonna make this
Hmm.
thing out of like a bunch of
Square
it's
angular
like four
blocks.
polygons, you know. It's just like, but
Hmm.
it looks pretty good
And
and animates pretty well.
almost zero reflective surfaces, making
Right.
it age a lot better.
Yep. It looks really good. I give it a lot of credit. So they
Hmm.
get shot down. There are no witnesses, no survivors. Wink. From this crash, Dredd and Fergie escape, uh, and then get captured by the Angel Gang. I have to give a huge amount of credit in this scene specifically that Mean Angel has
Hmm.
some of the coolest prosthetic and makeup work I've seen in a really long time. Like,
This is the
especially,
metal robot guy, right?
yeah, especially with like the collarbone that's metal and like it has
Hmm.
strips of skin on it and stuff. That stuff looks really good. And it still looks really good.
Uh-huh. Like
It's
it's
great.
ridiculous how good that looks. It's
Yeah,
cheesy as hell,
it sure
but
is.
yeah,
But
like
like,
he turns his volume up and he's like he's currently on a water. I recommend you don't get him angry. It's like okay.
turning the anger dial, like, it's really, that's so dumb. I do like that Fergie pretends to be a believer, and everybody's really excited until Dredd lets him know that they're cannibals, and they are
Mhm.
going to dine on Fergie,
He
which
gets
is
around the corner and sees a literal human on a spit.
it's such a good shot. Um, and Dredd escapes. Fargo is there on his long walk, and helps out a little bit, then gets stabbed in the back, like
Mm-hmm.
literally 5 seconds later, and takes like the next half an hour to perish.
Yep. Including Dredd saying the classic line, "Don't die," which tickles me every time I hear it.
Don't die. It's like, okay, man. He's probably gonna
And
try not to, but you know.
of course, he had to die and have his final words underneath a statue of Lady Justice. By the by.
Yeah, in case it couldn't get any more on the nose. But kind of at the same time that this is happening, we're in like two different scenes at the same time. We're finding out about the Janus project, which turns out to be a DNA. They took some DNA from the chief judges at the time, and then we're essentially trying to make the perfect judge, and they got one good
Mm-hmm.
one, and that was Dredd. Um, and then they tried to make another one. That one went crazy, and that's your
Yeah.
brother. It's Rico, a judgmental
Like,
brother. Like,
yeah, they reference the fact that they swept away all of the failures of the Janus project, and
yep.
like the files are locked in
Mm-hmm.
Central.
Wink. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it all of that is pretty okay. I do like when Fargo dies, he's just like, and dying, blah. Like, he just
Uh-huh.
like, there's no drawn out thing. He's just like, blah. He just
Yep.
immediately perishes.
I do like Rico causing chaos at this point is pretty solid because they figure out at this point that like because like the chief explains to Dredd is like, no, I lied to you, by the way, bro. Like
Right.
your parents didn't abandon you. Like we made you. Like
Yeah.
in essence, I'm kind of like your dad,
Right.
and Rico is kind of like your brother.
Right.
And by the way, you sent him to prison.
And also,
Oops.
it's a very good explanation of why do you think Dredd's DNA was on the gun and the bullets that killed the reporter? Because it's your
Uh-huh.
brother.
Yes, we're also going to ignore the fact that clearly they're not twins. By the
Right.
way,
Right. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like 90s. Someone uses like test tube baby as an insult, and I was like, ooh, this really is 95. Wow. Okay. You're really
uh-huh.
you're hitting all the high points here. Um but yeah, um the Rico is causing chaos, and they're assassinating judges by the
All of the
dozens.
judges.
Yeah, like they're
Uh-huh.
like in 14 hours there's 140, or like 48 hours there was like 140 something judges that died. Um
And we did miss the shortest sociopathical courtship routine ever. By the way, uh,
yeah. Oh, yeah, we get introduced to, what is her name? Isla? Dr. Isla Hayden. Joan Chen, who most people are going to know her from Twin Peaks. Um, she pops up in this and does almost nothing until she beats the crap out of Diane Lane later in a really good fight scene. So at
uh-huh.
least she gets to do something cool in this movie. Um,
Yeah, but she's literally there to basically be the female half of Rico, essentially.
right. Yeah, she gets to be, hey, here's a doctor. Go do something. It's like, okay.
Uh-huh.
Griffin takes advantage of the situation and says, like, hey man, we can make a bunch of like judges. And they were saying something like, yeah, in a couple of hours you can have a whole bunch of judges. And he's like, we can recoup our costs. You just gotta unseal the files. Just
What use are a bunch of judges in 20 years? Well, technology has evolved,
that's,
so, you
that's
know.
right. You know, we've come a long time. Processing powers, really. So in Evangelion style, they unseal the 3 locks here, and give him power to create an army of super judges, which
Uh-huh.
shockingly he abuses immediately, um,
Yep.
and then
Because
kills
who
them.
would have thunk it that they decide to change their mind 2 seconds after doing it?
Right.
And then the Chief Justice is like, okay, Rico, come on in and deal with this, please. And he
That's
just
right.
walks in and slaughters them.
I also like how.
Which
Go ahead.
we didn't mention that he walks in and slaughters them, and Dredd is on the other side of the wall because him and Fergie have sneaked in through the flame pits.
Yes. There's I really love that shot of just like a Dark Souls game, there's fire rolling down that hallway, and Rob Schneider is just screaming, like just
Hmm.
unable to move and screaming. It's like he's just like us.
I
Um,
like the fact that they fall through a tube, and Rob and like Fergie's like, "I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm
mhm,
alive," and then he looks over, and there's Dredd, and he's like, "So you?"
right. It's pretty. It's Rob Schneider has some pretty good stuff in this. He does all right.
Hmm.
Um, so they go, they using the help of Hershey, they figure out if they turned on the Janus Project, there's probably like a big power surge. Oh yeah, the Statue of Liberty. Let's go there. Um,
They moved the Statue of Liberty there.
yeah, they're like, oh yeah, they moved the Statue of Liberty, and I was like, oh my god, that's the worst and the best all at the same
Uh-huh.
time. I love this movie so much. Um, so yeah, the super soldier DNA generating lab where they're just making the berserker from the Gears of War games turns out to be inside of the Statue of Liberty. So they go in there, they run into the ABC robot who uh, is just going nuts.
Uh-huh.
Captures Dredd and Hershey, hurts Fergie, kills the
It kills Griffin. It
kills
rips Griffin's
Griffin.
arms and legs off.
Yeah, in a pretty that's a pretty good shot. And at the same time, Rico is decides to get rid of essentially the Dredd DNA that's in there, the one that made Dredd, and replaces it with his DNA to make a bunch of crazy guys. Because who didn't
Hmm.
see that coming? Um,
So we probably need to talk about the other logical fallacy here, which
sure.
is he's replacing the DNA of himself with himself.
I I think what the movie is trying to say is like he's got the bad DNA. Judge Dredd has got the good
He
DNA. It's like,
he oh,
yeah,
oh he's the solid snake of the pair. I
exactly,
see.
brother. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's
They
very much the
literally
like,
almost say that exact same thing several
yep,
times.
it's very much. I think you're right. I think it very much is the liquid versus solid of like, you got the good. We tweaked the dials in the good direction for you, and we tweaked the dials in the bad direction for liquid. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's very much the same thing. Um, the I like that um, Fergie eventually gets to hack the ABC robot while the Doctor and Hershey are having like a really good knockdown drag out brawl.
Oh, it's
Um,
super solid as well. Like super
it's
solid
really good.
contacts. It's easily the best fight sequence in this entire movie.
It's really good. Like I was not expecting that out of Diane Lane and Joan Chen together, but like that's a pretty good fight scene. And then
And
the f-
I'm also pretty sure, by the way, that they only used like a stunt person for one shot in that, and that's it. Everything else
wow, that's
was
impressive.
just actually them. We did skip over the hoverbike chase, which I'm fine with because that's just a whole sequence of eh.
The hoverbike chase is really where the CG of 95 shows its head. It's a lot of
Mhm.
like the hoverbike is falling too fast and the scaling is off and like I'm I don't hate it because that's just the era it was. Um
Mhm.
it does stick out because so much of the rest of the movie is really solid. There's also that really weird shot where they like the one guy gets caught up in the sign that's like a blue grid and the sign like stretches and blows up. That's just a weird it's just a weird shot, but like I get it. Like Cyberpunk
Mhm.
goes a little bit weird. Um but yeah, it's interesting because Hershey and the Doctor have a really good fight scene, but Rico and Dredd kind of don't. because there's like two fight scenes
Yep.
going on at the same time. Um, and there's a bunch of the clones all hatching and whatnot, and there's a bunch of like drippy arms that are busting out of stuff. They get set on fire and blown up like 30 seconds later, so it's not really that big of a deal. Um, and the laboratory is exploding. Dredd chases Rico to the top of the Statue of Liberty. Real like
Mm-hmm.
Ghostbusters 2 time here. Um,
Yep.
and
Where
they
the lawgiver parked in the face, sorry, the lawmaster
right,
parked in the face
right,
promptly fails to fly.
right, and they have like a little bit of a scuffle, and Stallone gets to show off his muscles a little bit more, and then Rico falls to his death after like a real short struggle. Um, the we find out that the central computer was recording the entire thing, broadcast the information, and Dredd's name was cleared. The remaining judges are like, "Hey, Dredd, like we gotta make the council back. You need to be the chief justice."
There's
And he,
the wording here. We've got to reconstitute the council.
it's just
Weirdest wording ever.
it's the strangest. Like, yeah, that's technically true, but probably not what someone would say. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and Dredd gives the really great line of like, "Nah, I'm late for work," and then just like straps the stuff
Gets
back
his
on,
gear on.
and it's just like, cool, peace. Like, I'm going back to work, and I actually really do like the last shot where Dredd is kind of in the corner of the frame, and you get that pull out of that huge painting with the entire city in the background. I really like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of respect this movie just being like, all right, the bad guy's dead. Here's like maybe one more minute. Everybody's alive. They need a little bit of help, but yeah, cool. We're done. Bye. Credits. Here's the cure.
Yep.
Um, and I kind of respect it. We don't. I don't think Dredd needs more than that. Um,
True. So the creator of Dredd had some things to say about this movie.
boy, he sure did.
Mm-hmm. The general gist of it was, yeah, it's not my Judge Dredd. It
Hmm.
might be our Judge Dredd, but it's not my Judge Dredd.
Yeah. It's also been interesting to see what Stallone has had to say about the movie um, ever since. It's a lot of like, nobody could figure out. I think he'll never admit it, but I think he's including himself in that. Nobody could really figure out were they going to do a super serious uh, uh, comic book movie that was satire. Or were they going to do this kind of like buddy cop action movie? Were they going to make it a little bit of a comedy? And they kind of did all of it,
Mm-hmm.
largely
And by
to.
extension, none of it.
Yeah, and like, I feel like nowadays, we'll see what comes with the next movie, but nowadays it's probably a lot easier to make a comic book movie and be like, yeah, this thing is a comic book movie, and people are like, hell yeah, let's go. And in 95 it was like, well, we're not really like, those are for little boys, little kids, little babies, really. Comic books, that's not, we're not, this is an action movie. Have you seen the
We
rating?
are we are 5 years out from X-Men.
Right, so we are like way before like
We
X-Men and
are
Spider-Man and all that
7
stuff.
years out from Spider-Man.
Yeah, so we are well before someone being like, "Yeah, we're making a comic book movie." You know, in '95, it would have been like, "No, no, 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 not
There
the
was there was
not that
two,
word." Oh yeah,
Judge Dredd and Tank Girl.
right. Which Tank Girl is
I don't like
also
that movie.
infamous. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it's been interesting to see people. This movie was not received well. It had a $90 million budget. It earned $35 million in the U.S. Like, it is largely seen as a flop. But
Did you hear about what it came out the same day as?
no,
Die Hard with a Vengeance.
oh, boy, that's rough. Oh boy.
Uh-huh.
But like we talked about in the intro part, this is the first time I've seen this movie, and I liked it a lot. It's to be clear, it's not a good movie. It
No.
it does not know what to do. It leans as hard as it can on the satire stuff, and it never really gets as far as it needs to go. But and Stallone is not great in this. Like Diane Lane is great. Rob
No.
Schneider is actually pretty good. Pretty much everybody else is really good. Armand Assante, like I said before, is acting in the wrong movie, which I kind of like, but it's maybe he's maybe taking the role a little bit too far, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
But man, for me, like the practical effects and the prosthetic and
That
makeup
costuming
stuff,
the
costuming is great.
so good.
The set design is really good. Like whether it's in the like the judges HQ, which is really good, or if it's down on the street, like there's some really really good stuff in this movie. It's really well designed, and the practical effects are great. A lot of the CG is actually still really good. Like it's I liked it a lot. Like I think it's a really solid movie that it's kind of
It is a B movie. Like it's
yeah,
100% a B movie.
and a lot of it is good in spite of itself. And I think it's a
Yeah.
lot of everybody except for Stallone is really good, and Stallone's fine. But like I feel like everybody else is doing a great job, and I don't know, I kind of liked it. I thought it was. It also helps that it's a 90-minute movie, and it gets in and it gets out, and there's a lot of blood and explosions and some fuzzy DNA science explanations, and then more explosions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm in kind of the same boat. Like this isn't a go-to for me. This isn't one of those movies that I
sure.
will constantly look at. But it's a good middle of the road movie with some excellent ups and some really low lows.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
mean, we might as well talk about like IMDb is a 5.5 out of 10, which
Yep. Rotten Tomatoes has it at 22%, 30% for audience score. I think 30% is probably a little lower than I would put it.
yeah,
5.5 I think
I
is
would probably
probably
do a
right.
yeah, between I for me probably between a 4.5 and a 5.5. Like it's a
Mm,
good solid middle of the road kind of movie. Like,
yep.
and especially if you can disconnect yourself from if you're a fan of Dredd, if you can
Right.
disconnect yourself from that, then you can have a little bit of fun with this. And if you
Yeah.
can't, oh boy, do I have a next episode for you.
Right. Right. Yeah, I had fun watching this. This was a good watch. I do like a lot of satire, especially when it's kind of aimed at the US, and especially when it's aimed at the police force, and kind
Hmm.
of the burgeoning issues surrounding that. Um and I do wish they went a little bit harder on it, but I I thought this was cool. Thought this was a cool movie. I wasn't expecting it. I know I'm the guy who likes stuff. I like nearly everything, but I
Hmm.
really
Oh, I'm
wasn't
the same.
expecting to go in here liking this. Um,
Yeah. What?
yeah.
So, how do you feel about the general universe's lore now that you've seen this movie? Like,
Man, it I like this stuff. Like I like the kind of like post-apocalyptic, like though the war happened, and like it we're well past that, and we're stuffing 65 million people in a mega city that's only designed for 20 million, and the like cyberpunk future nightmare, like this is cyberpunk that I kind of click with, and it's not the kind of rainy neon lit sort of thing. It's like
like this. This may sound potentially off. Let's try and phrase it as politely as I can. Cyberpunk in the Cyberpunk 2077 video game, in the Deus Ex kind of style,
mhm,
that feels like Eastern cyberpunk.
yes. Yep.
This feels very Western cyberpunk, where it's
Yep.
like, no, everything's gone to hell.
Yeah.
Like this is much more dystopian than those are. Like this is
Yeah.
harder down the hardcore side.
Right.
It's like, yeah, that's very appropriate for English and Americans to have this kind of like style. Whereas I feel
Right.
like the bright lights is very much an Asian inspiration.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I liked it, and I am very excited for our next episode so we can watch the other one. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think that's it for me. Any other closing thoughts here?
It's better than it should be.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's about where I remembered it. I still hate so much of the comedy in it. I'm not gonna lie. There
Yeah.
are some one-liners that really stick, but a lot of the time it's just some BS.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's fine, and
Yeah.
I'm excited to watch the next one, which I totally forgot about the American flag, which I think shows up in the next one. But it's
Okay.
an Easter egg reference.
Oh,
It's only got six stars on it,
that's
which
really good.
represents the 6 super states, I believe they're referred to as.
Man, that's really good. Okay, I like it.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us and watching the movie. I hope we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. We are the judge.